There is something you don't know. And that is precisely the problem. Because you ignore it, but you act as if you know everything. You are not the only one. In fact, that is the true virus of this era. Millions of people confident in themselves, strongly expressing opinions about things they barely understand. And you are one of them. You didn't know, did you? Don't worry. No one knows. That is the terrifying part. The trap is in your head, but you can't see it. Because your own brain deceives you. It gives you the false feeling of control, of knowledge, of clarity. But it is nothing more than a theater, an illusion, a comfortable mirage that makes you feel superior while it drags you toward ridicule. Have you never wondered why the most ignorant are also the loudest? Why there are people who, with barely 2 poorly digested facts, dare to hold court as if they were experts? Why the less we know, the more sure we are that we are right? And why, on the other hand, those who truly master a subject tend to doubt, hesitate, correct themselves, remain silent? It is no coincidence, it is a pattern. And no, it is not just a common mistake. It is a structural flaw in the way we think. And no one, absolutely no one, is safe from it. Not you, not me, not even those who believe they are above all this. There is an invisible curve governing the world. You don't see it, but it is there, shaping conversations, opinions, political decisions, entire careers, and personal relationships. It is like a silent monster that rewards ignorance with confidence and punishes wisdom with doubt. A cruel irony. The less you know, the stronger you believe you are right. The more you learn, the more aware you become of how much you still have to understand. And that crushes you. They have taught you to admire the one who speaks loudly, who expresses opinions without fear, who interrupts, who leads the conversation even when they have nothing solid to say. But that is not the wise one. It is the impostor. The brave one is not always the wisest. Sometimes they are just the most unconscious. And here comes the tough part. This phenomenon not only ruins discussions on social media. This bias has destroyed empires, has cost lives, has spread conspiracy theories, has turned mediocre people into leaders, and has silenced true geniuses. Because when noise increases in volume, the truth is left without a microphone. Right now, as you listen to this, there is someone expressing an opinion with absolute certainty about topics they haven't even studied. There is someone convinced they have the definitive answer without even having properly formulated the question. And there is someone, maybe you, who at some point has also fallen into that trap. It's normal. It's part of the mechanism. The problem is that no one wants to admit they are wrong, because doing so would be to recognize that they have lived on a comfortable lie, that they have made decisions out of ignorance, that they have advised others from a false pedestal. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not just a psychological curiosity, it is a curse disguised as self-esteem. It is the reason why so many people speak with such certainty about science, history, politics, medicine, economics, art, religion, technology, without really knowing anything. And the worst part is that we listen to them. We give them space, we give them power, because we confuse confidence with wisdom, and we confuse doubt with weakness. But it is not. Doubting is a sign of intelligence. Correcting oneself is courage. Questioning yourself is power. They have deceived you. They have made you believe that if you doubt, it is because you don't know. But in reality, those who doubt the most are those who have explored the terrain the most. Those who know how fragile a misunderstood truth is. Those who have seen how everything they believed to be true can collapse with a single well-constructed argument. those who have had to rebuild themselves over and over, not from ego, but from humility. This video is not for those who already know everything. This video is for those who begin to suspect they know nothing. For those who have the courage to look inward and ask themselves, how many times have I spoken from ignorance thinking it was wisdom? How many times have I laughed at others without realizing that the ridiculous one was me? How many times have I felt superior without any real basis? Get ready, because you are going to go through a curve. And it's not a metaphor. It is real. It is the mental journey we all make when we try to learn something new. First comes euphoria, blind confidence, the "I get it now," the "it's easy." It is a false peak, a dangerous summit. Some call it the mountain of stupidity, and many stay living there. But if you are lucky, or if you are forced, you will fall. You will descend down an uncomfortable slope. You begin to notice that you don't know as much, that the pieces don't fit, that everything becomes confusing. And then you arrive at the valley of despair, that place where confidence dies, where you think you are useless, that you are incapable, that you will never understand. Many give up there. But if you keep going, if you hold on, if you study, if you surround yourself with different voices, if you stay silent enough to start listening, then the curve changes, and little by little comprehension returns. But no longer as arrogance, but as humility. Confidence comes back, yes, but now it is wise, prudent, calm confidence, one that does not need to impose itself because it understands that even what it knows can be questioned. And here comes the most twisted fact of all. When you see someone doubting their own ideas, hesitating while explaining something complex, asking more than answering, you are probably facing the one who knows the most. And when you see someone speaking with absolute arrogance, with no room for doubt, no nuances, no questions, be careful. You are probably facing someone who has no idea, but believes they know everything. Welcome to the mental paradox that governs our time, where the wise are silenced and the ignorant crown themselves, where true knowledge begins just at the moment you dare to say, "I don't know." Now that you're inside, do you want to know more? And here is where a word appears that very few know, but that changes everything. Metacognition. It sounds technical, but it's simple. It is the ability to think about how you think, to observe your own thought as if it were not yours, as if you could step outside your head for a moment and look at the mechanism from the outside. Most people don't have this ability developed. They believe that thinking is enough, but no. Thinking is not enough. You also have to know from where you do it and why. Think about this. When was the last time you seriously questioned an idea you firmly believed in? When was the last time you caught yourself in the middle of a conversation and thought, "What if I'm wrong?" You don't do it often, do you? It's normal. The brain hates discomfort. And doubt hurts. That's why it prefers certainty, even if built on sand. Here comes an even more twisted trap. The illusion of cognitive superiority. That is, the tendency that we all, yes, all, have to believe we are smarter, more rational, more logical, and more objective than most. It's like a fog on the mirror. You see yourself clearly, but others appear distorted. You see their mistakes, contradictions, arrogance, but you don't see your own. You believe you are more awake than they are, more sensible, more fair. But that thought is already a sign that you have fallen. Because the more convinced you are that you do not fall into biases, the more deeply trapped you are in them. And the irony is that even now, as I tell you this, Your mind might be saying, yes, sure, that happens to others, but not to me. That voice you have right now, that is the voice of bias. It is the same one that makes you see the ridiculousness in others and logic in yourself. It is what stops you from moving forward. Because if you can't question your own judgment, you are condemned to live inside a cage that you don't even know exists. Metacognition is the key to getting out of that cage. But it's not easy to find, much less to use. Because it demands brutal honesty. It demands accepting that you can be wrong even about what you defend the most. It demands silence when you want to shout, listening when you want to talk, reading when you prefer to give your opinion. And the hardest of all, it demands getting down from the internal pedestal where your ego has placed you. Think about it. How many times is a discussion not really an exchange of ideas, but an ego contest? How many times do you defend a position not because you are convinced it is the best, but because you don't want to lose? Because you have already invested too much in being right. Because changing your mind would make you seem weak. Because correcting yourself would be like betraying yourself. That is not a search for truth. That is mental theater. And the worst kind of theater is the one only you are watching, but you still applaud yourself. Now, imagine a world where everyone had developed this metacognition. A world where before giving an opinion, one would ask themselves, do I really know about this? Or, where does this certainty I feel come from? Or even, what if the other person is right and I'm not seeing it because of my own emotional bias? Can you imagine? Noise would decrease. Social networks would be filled with honest doubts and not hollow certainties. Discussions would be collaborations. Silence would gain value. But that world doesn't exist. Because most people don't think about how they think. They just react. And here comes one of the hardest truths. There are people who will never leave that bubble of confident ignorance. Because they don't know that they don't know. And if you don't know that you don't know, how are you going to seek to learn? That is the perfect trap. The cognitive hell. You can't look for the exit of a room if you don't even know you are locked in. That is the real danger of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It is not just that people don't know. It is that they have no idea they don't know. And meanwhile, the one who does know, who has broken their head, learning, doubting, failing, stays silent. Not out of cowardice, not out of insecurity, but because they understand that wisdom is fragile, that truth moves, that complexity is not shouted, it is thought. But of course, society does not reward the one who reflects. It rewards the one who speaks first, the one who throws out short phrases, the one who shouts with conviction even if they are saying nonsense. The algorithm doesn't want truth, it wants certainty. And if you don't have certainty, it makes you invisible. The world has become a fair of egos, where the most blind often has the microphone. And the worst is that you can become one of them without realizing it. You don't need to be ill-intentioned. You just need to stop questioning yourself. Stop asking yourself if you know what you think you know. That is the entry door. A little pride is enough. A little haste, a little need for approval. And you're in. You're already part of the problem. So I tell you with all possible harshness, your opinion is not always valid. Your experience is not always enough. Your ideas are not always yours. And your certainty, many times, is the elegant disguise of your ignorance. This is not an insult. It is a warning. Because if you don't start practicing metacognition, you will keep falling over and over into the same trap. You will speak forcefully about topics you don't understand. You will harshly judge what you barely know. And you will surround yourself with others like you. applauding each other, convinced you have the truth, when in reality, you are all lost. But there is still hope, because if you have come this far, it is because something in you has already started to awaken. Maybe you didn't know the name of this, maybe you hadn't seen it so clearly, but now you have it in front of you, and you can no longer ignore it. So I ask you again, with a more serious, quieter, more dangerous voice, what part of what you believe you know is just an echo of your ignorance? Are you willing to question yourself? Because if you don't do it, life will. And life has no mercy for the blind who believe they see. And just when you think the worst part of ignorance is speaking without knowing, something much more dangerous appears. Because that false confidence not only makes you speak louder than others, it also makes you appear more capable, more confident, more of a leader, and that, in a world blind to critical thinking, gives you power. Because we don't live in a society that chooses the wisest. We live in a society that chooses the most confident. And confidence doesn't always come from knowledge. Many times it comes from emptiness, from noise, from a blindness that doesn't doubt, that doesn't stop, that moves forward without breaks. And since no one questions the one who speaks firmly, we end up being led by those who shouldn't be at the wheel. That is how the Dunning-Kruger effect not only distorts conversations, but decides who has the microphone, who occupies decision-making positions, who becomes a reference. Not because they are brilliant, but because they seem to be. And in times when appearance weighs more than essence, that is enough. A firm tone, a steady gaze, a confident narrative, and that's it. Even if what they say is nonsense, they are followed. Because we have confused charisma with criteria, stage presence with conceptual mastery, and we pay dearly for it. Look around you. Observe your surroundings. How many people have gotten far not because of what they knew, but because of how well they sold their ignorance? How many leaders have you known who climbed to the top thanks to boldness, not merit? And how many wise people have been ignored because they didn't know how to raise their voice amidst the noise? The problem is not only individual, it is structural. Because the world rewards boldness more than knowledge, applauds those who assert more than those who ask, worships those who command more than those who reason. And here is where another concept comes in that no one teaches you, but that changes everything. Epistemological humility. It sounds complex, but it is simple. It is the ability to recognize that what you know may not be true, that what you understand today may change tomorrow, that your ideas must always be under suspicion, not from insecurity, but from intellectual maturity, from the understanding that knowledge is not a possession, it is a process. But of course, humility doesn't sell, it doesn't attract crowds, it doesn't conquer stages, it doesn't go viral. Humility is uncomfortable because it reminds us what we are not, what we don't understand, what is still beyond our reach. And that forces us to face our own ignorance head on. That is why the one who appears to know is chosen, because it comforts, it reassures, it gives the illusion that someone has the answers, even if it is a lie. And then the inevitable happens. The ignorant lead, the wise observe, and the world sinks. But this doesn't end there, because the most chilling thing is what comes next. Once someone with ignorance gains power, they stop listening, because their confidence becomes a wall, and behind that wall, criticism doesn't enter, doubt doesn't enter, only the echo, the applause, the validation. And that is how empires of stupidity are built. Pyramids of opinion built on zero knowledge, but adorned with charisma, arrogance, and blind followers. And be careful, Because the real danger is not just that these people exist. The danger is that we admire them, we follow them, we turn them into models, influencers, entrepreneurs, politicians, coaches, role models. We put them on digital altars. We give them space in our attention. And what enters through our attention enters through our mind. And what enters through our mind transforms us. And that is where the Dunning-Kruger effect completes its work. It not only makes the ignorant feel wise, it makes the ignorant become leaders. And you follow them. Do you see it now? It is not just a bias. It is a cycle, a chain, a mental epidemic. But not all is lost, because there is something the ignorant cannot do, something they cannot imitate, no matter how much they try. They cannot doubt with elegance. They cannot nuance with intelligence. They cannot stop before answering to say, "I don't know, but I want to understand." Because that requires courage, a courage that does not come from ego, but from character, from the conscious decision to be wiser than popular, from the conscious decision to choose truth, even when it makes you lose power. And you? What do you choose? The easy applause given by confident ignorance, or the silent and long path of real knowledge? Because here comes the hardest part. The more you know, the less you will fit in. The more you read, the more isolated you will feel. The more you question yourself, the more misunderstood you will feel. Because you live in a world that applauds certainty, even if rotten, and punishes doubt, even if full of meaning. But there lies the difference. There lies the proof. The wise are not here to please. They are here to unsettle. And if you are not willing to go through that process, you will remain trapped on the curve. Up on the mountain of stupidity, surrounded by noise, believing you have arrived when you are barely starting to walk. And the worst part is that you won't know you are lost, because everything around you will seem to applaud you. Are you ready to stop being applauded? Are you ready to start being real? And now that you see it, now that you have finally understood how the game works, comes the question no one wants to ask. What if everything you are has been built on false ideas? Not what you know, what you are. Your opinions, your decisions, your judgments, your certainties, what if many of them did not come from knowledge, but from repetition? What if everything you defend firmly is just a reflection of something you heard once and never dared to question? Because here is the real twist. The Dunning-Kruger effect not only contaminates thought, it contaminates identity. It makes you build an entire personality based on assumptions you never reviewed. And the most chilling part is that you can spend your whole life like that, without suspecting it. But something in you changed today. Maybe you don't feel it fully, but it has begun. Because when you see the internal machinery of ignorance, you can no longer walk the world with the same lightness. Every conversation becomes a minefield. Every certainty is tinged with suspicion. Every confident voice starts to sound too loud, as if it wanted to cover something up, as if behind all that volume there was a hole that doesn't want to be seen. And there lies the detail. Wisdom doesn't shout. It observes, it listens, it asks. It sits silently amid the noise and waits for others to finish making the show, waits for the ego to exhaust itself, waits for the mask to fall. Because it always falls. Always. So if you have come this far, you are not just another one. You are part of that strange, annoying, and deeply necessary minority that is willing to look ignorance in the face, even when that ignorance lives within. You are part of that minority that doesn't seek to be right, but to understand. That doesn't speak reflexively, but responsibly. And that puts you in an uncomfortable position, yes, but also a powerful one. Because real power is not knowing everything. It is knowing that you can be wrong and still move forward. Now I invite you to something. But it's not a challenge, nor an empty promise. It is a choice, a decision you can make right now. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, in what areas of your life do you believe you know? And maybe you don't know anything? What part of your world should you go back and investigate from scratch? What beliefs did you inherit and never questioned? Put it in the comments. One sentence, one real doubt. Write, I am no longer so sure about, and complete it yourself. Whatever it is. The most powerful sentence you can write today is not a certainty, it is a crack. Because through that crack, the light comes in. And if this video has made you think, if it has shaken some of your false certainties, subscribe, but not for me. For you, because if you stay here, we will keep destroying comfortable certainties and opening uncomfortable doors. And believe me, no one will applaud you for that. But you will move forward as few dare. And now, yes, the last sentence. It's not advice. It's not a reflection. It's a warning. Every time you feel an absolute certainty in your mind, be suspicious. Every time you believe yourself superior because of what you know, doubt. And every time you think this video was not for you, watch it again. See you in the next uncomfortable thought. Or not. It depends on whether you dare. Because remember this, the wise don't shout, don't show off, don't seek followers. The wise disappear just when they are most needed, and that is the greatest act of intelligence this world has yet to learn to value. Silence. The noise is over.